Welcome back to the program. So I've been saying for the longest time, and I'll repeat myself, that in order to get convictions, you're going to have a grand jury in Florida. Now, we know that there is a grand jury in Florida. It's been there since at least December of 2025, and they are still continuing to work on the Russia criminal conspiracy case. However, as what always happens, we have deep state actors at the Department of Justice that were slow walking some of these indictments. John Brennan, James Clapper, Jim Comey, and others. So, of course, President Trump and the Department of Justice said, nope, we're going to figure out who's in charge, and we're going to remove that person and put somebody else in that we know we can trust that will help move along these indictments and hopefully these criminal convictions. And that person is a Trump loyalist, someone that has worked with Trump for many, many years, and his name is Joe Digenova. Now, you may have heard that name before because if you've ever heard his name, you'll also hear Victoria Tunsing, another expert lawyer. Between the two of them, they are awesome. They defended President Trump in 2020. They've been around a very long time. We haven't heard much from either one of them lately, and for whatever reason, don't know why that is, but I haven't seen them on television and things like that. Well, President Trump has now appointed Joe Digenova to the head counsel for Todd Blanche at the Department of Justice, and in particular, to oversee the Russia criminal conspiracy case. Now, I want to play you something from 2020. This was Judge Jeanine on Justice with Judge Jeanine. This was back in 2020 when she was on television. And I want to give you an idea of the type of person that's going to be taking over his knowledge and his attitude. Listen closely.
What does it tell you the bar is as open as he is about what he sees as things that apparently don't make sense and as out there saying clearly spying took place, and that he is starting the investigation assigning Durham before the IG report is even out?
Well, he's drawing people in, and it's having a profoundly positive effect on the investigation. You see the rats scattering, Comey, Clapper, Brennan, all James Baker particularly, all basically making public statements which are going to be used against them in grand juries. The fact that they continue to talk.
They're going to be used against them in grand juries. He said that back in 2020, okay? 6 years later, there's now grand juries. This guy knows what he's talking about.
Shows that they believe they have a problem and that their stories have never held up. The thing that's most important is that the Attorney General, who is one of the great lawyers this country has ever produced, is saying, I thought when I got here, I would be able to get all the answers to all my questions about how this got started. And by golly, I'm not only not getting the answers I'm getting are completely inadequate. Now, just ask yourself this question. He's the Attorney General of the United States. The new FBI Director, Chris Wray, works for him. Does it sound strange to you that Chris Wray does not have all the answers about what went on inside the FBI? Let me just say this to America tonight. The new FBI Director, Chris Wray, is an empty suit. He's an embarrassment to the United States. I'm going to stop you right there,
Joe. I knew the first time he testified before Congress he was an empty suit when he was saying, well, we don't know if we can give you what you subpoenaed. Let's both agree with it and get past this guy, Christopher Wray. I don't think he even belongs there, but that's not my call.
That's why the Attorney General doesn't have answers, because Christopher Wray has refused to investigate because he wants to protect the institution. And just remember this. He is a Comey acolyte.
Well,
He's a he loves James Comey.
Okay, listen, why is Comey talking? You and I both know there are so many inconsistent statements out there, and by the time everybody points a finger at everyone else, there's going to be so much to impeach him with. He's got good lawyers. I hear he's got Fitzgerald, correct? Patrick Fitzgerald. He put, a bunch of people in, Blagojevich and a few others. I'm not sure.
Patrick Fitzgerald is an unethical former prosecutor. And here's the thing. James Comey is talking because he is delusional. He's a man so self-possessed, so self-righteous, but he believes that nothing will ever happen to him. He is a very, very, very strange man.
I want to throw in there, Joe, the fact that James Baker, the #1 attorney at the FBI, said that he was quite worried that it would look like Comey was trying to blackmail Trump in J. Edgar Hoover style, and he was going to. This is a top lawyer at the FBI. We were worried about the Hoover analogies. We were determined not to have such a disaster happen on our watch. He's talking about the head of the FBI, Jim Comey. Do you think he's going to testify against Comey?
Here's what everybody needs to remember. From the first moment it was revealed that Comey privately briefed Trump at the Trump Tower and told him about the dossier, but only about the salacious details.
Right.
It was clear that, in fact, Comey was blackmailing the president of the United States. And what's interesting is that nobody stopped Comey, including James Baker. And remember, that briefing of President-elect Trump occurred on January 6th. And the day before, on January 5th, there was a meeting in the White House with President Obama, Vice President Biden, James Comey, Sally Yates, and Susan Rice. And what were they discussing? The counterintelligence investigation against the incoming president of the United States. Barack Obama knew that James Comey was going to blackmail the incoming president of the United States.
No surprise there. Joe Digenova, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
So that is Joe Digenova. Is that? Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. This guy's a badass. This guy is a great lawyer, great prosecutor. He defended President Trump on numerous occasions, and he's now taking over the criminal conspiracy grand jury that has now been impaneled in Florida for the last 3 or 4 months, since December of 2025, I believe, is when that happened. So this is good news, okay? And he is going to be in charge of that. And again, I wanted to show you that from 6 years ago. This guy knows what he's talking about. He knows where the bodies are buried. He's been, at the forefront of all of this, just like as much as, Tulsi would know, or President Trump, for instance, or pretty much anyone would know. He has the knowledge. Judge Jeanine Pirro, obviously, she's got a different job now. And so this is a really good development, because if we are going to get anywhere at all, it's going to be on this criminal conspiracy. And that's why they had to remove the lady who was slow walking all of these indictments. There are indictments waiting. There's indictments waiting on John Brennan, on James Clapper, on Jim Comey, and who else? There's 2 more. Andrew McCabe, and then there's Sally Yates. There are 5 right now, as we speak. There are 5 indictments waiting, and they've been waiting for months. But of course, deep state scumbags still at the Department of Justice and elsewhere got in the way. So finally, they figured out who it was. I don't know why it took this long. President Trump cleared him out, and they put in Joe Digenova. And so, look, that's all I can do is report what's going on. Hopefully it leads to 5 quick indictments in the next 30 days or whatever. I don't know. But if we're going to get anywhere, we're going to get somewhere with people that are close to Trump, that are loyalists to President Trump, and that know exactly where the bodies are buried, where everything is, how everything went down. And someone like Joe Digenova and Victoria Tunsing, his wife, are definitely 2 good brains to have at the Department of Justice to work on this case. So we'll see what happens. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.